We've been conditioned for generations now to look outside ourselves for that, when the true power really lies within us. It's a matter of unlearning and relearning, like the way things really work. There are limitations in blood work and the other testing that's done, mainly because the model has not been really built around tapping into the different intelligences that the body has. Our conscious mind is 5 to 10%, if that, 5 to 10% of our intelligence. The rest of the body's intelligence, the subconscious mind, is 90 to 95%. And these tests were created with a fraction of our intelligence. Yes, science is great. Science has great capacities, but they are looking at a very, very narrow window to determine things that have a tremendous amount of complexity.
Ron Michael is the founder of Ascension Keys, where he helps people reactivate and realign to their body's innate intelligence. After a near-death experience, Ron was told that he could come back to Earth and help usher in a new paradigm of health that helped humans reconnect with their innate power to thrive.
I was like moved and pulled away from the scene of the accident to these 3 columns of light that were very familial, like felt like home. And the communication was, as in a typical near-death experience, okay, it's not your time. And this didn't come in words. It wasn't like somebody was speaking to me, but just emotion. Like you could feel the transmission of the information very deeply. If I chose to stay, which I had a choice, I would not only survive, but thrive. And the things I would learn along the way of my journey, I would be able to bring to the world, help shift the paradigm about the way we look, not only at frequency resonance and things like that, and the whole medical model that we're using, but the tapping into and the activation of the true intelligence of the human organism, of the body, that has been almost totally overlooked, could help us achieve much greater states of being.
I was excited to have Ron on the show because of the profound transformations in health he's created in my own life. I also believe we are fundamentally energetic beings, so his approach by measuring the frequency of our bodily systems resonated immensely with me.
The scan I do now assesses more than 2,000 points in the body and 153 systems to be able to really ascertain in a quantitative way in real time what's going on a frequency level with the intelligence of the body to assess what the imbalances are and also what is required to bring them back into alignment.
Viewing things through an energetic lens can also be applied in understanding the true quality of what we put into our bodies.
Things have changed a lot in the environment and the way food's processed, and also the raw materials that many of the supplement companies are using. And how do I know that? I am just going by what the resonance of thousands of people's bodies are saying about these different formulations and different brands, like you say. The organic, non-organic situation, fortunately, cannot be depended on anymore. You don't have to be so old to remember back when you were a kid and things that you put in the refrigerator or you brought back from the supermarket, whether it was lettuce or an apple or something like that, didn't last very long. Now they last for months, and that is not natural. It's meaning that there's some other treatment or chemical or something else going on that's preserving.
Both Ron and I agree that we are far more powerful than the story we have been told in relationship to our health and well-being. With the evolution of consciousness and reconnecting to the innate intelligence that we've always had, we can transcend this narrative and return to our divine blueprint.
It has to do with preserving our original DNA, first of all, activating our body's intelligence, which is really dependent on us detoxifying and cleansing and keeping our bodies clean on a daily basis. But that divine blueprint has been suppressed, shut down, and conditioned out of us. And the belief that we need to go outside of ourselves for the answers is part of the control system diverting our attention from accessing that divine blueprint.
Before we get into this conversation, I want to ask you to join this amazing community of consciousness explorers. This whole idea of pursuing expanded consciousness and the boundaries of human potential while living a modern life is relatively new, which is why we interview revered masters, teachers, experts, and practitioners to help you on your own journey. To stay up to date on the latest conversations, simply click subscribe below and you'll be notified each time a new episode comes out. I am so grateful for all of your support and comments. I love reading them. Now let's dive into this conversation. Ron, my friend, what is up?
Brother Scott, what's happening? So great to be here with you, man.
It's awesome to be here with you, man. I'm such a huge fan and advocate of what you're doing in the world, man. And it's changed my life, which is why I wanted to share your work and your story with others. And so maybe to start this conversation, if you were at a cocktail party and someone said, Ron, what do you do? How would you answer that question?
Well, there's a lot to it. What do I do? So, where do I even start? So, I help people who are looking to upgrade, optimize, and amplify their impact of their physical, mental, emotional, their multidimensional being in a way that goes beyond the traditional, even alternative and biohacking realms to upgrade, really amplify the intelligence of their body. And by tapping into that and also activating it, we're able to increase capacities in a way that we have forgotten about for eons, but even beyond our conscious comprehension. So that sounds like what does that really mean? But, greater energy, focus, concentration, mental clarity, productivity, alignment with our highest timeline. We're raising our frequency. I call some of the things I do a frequency attunement. We're actually attuning the frequency of the physical, mental, emotional, and like our multidimensional being. Like some people speak about an aura that we have. That's our energetic body as well. So all these things coming into alignment on a frequency basis can align us with our highest timeline in ways that we don't even have the conscious comprehension of understanding at the moment. And that's done through dialing in frequencies of food, water, supplementation, and charging the body with certain frequency profiles that activate our dormant DNA and activate the untapped potential that exists in the physical body.
So, I mean, so much to unpack there, and
just
a lot of words, a lot of combination of words that people maybe haven't even heard of, right? Things like reactivating dormant DNA, the energy body, the frequency of food and things you put in our body. I think before I get into all that, how you got here is a wild story and pretty incredible. And I think people would appreciate that context before we get into some of these details. So, I mean, when did this reality of health start to emerge, and what happened in your life that led you here?
Yeah. Okay. Great question. So it started with a major car accident, but before that, when I was 17, I became a registered hypnotherapist in New York City. At that time, they said I was the youngest one. This is 1981. So I had like a real passion for understanding and like tapping into our fullest potential. Fast forward, time I was 28. I was in 1993 driving a car in New York, and literally a Mack truck came straight into my lane, hit me head on at 70 miles an hour. I was the loudest noise I ever heard. Next thing I know, I was literally in a typical near-death experience, floating above the scene of the accident, looking at myself pinned in the car down below. Moments later, it seemed like I was like moved and pulled away from the scene of the accident to these 3 columns of light that were very familial, like felt like home. And the communication was, as in a typical near-death experience, okay, it's not your time. And this didn't come in words. It wasn't like somebody was speaking to me, but just emotion. Like you could feel the transmission of the information very deeply. And if I chose to stay, which I had a choice, I would not only survive, but thrive. And the things I would learn along the way of my journey, I would be able to bring to the world, help shift the paradigm about the way we look, not only at frequency resonance and things like that, and the whole medical model that we're using, but the tapping into and the activation of the true intelligence of the human organism, of the body, that has been almost totally overlooked, could help us achieve much greater states of being than, so that was like the transmission. And that I also be gifted with certain gifts, skills, and downloads along the way as they were required, that would help me, deliver these gifts. And as a result, one of them was the ability to see energetic fields of people. When given permission, like when I'm working with clients, I could see the energetic field, and that assists me in really getting dialed in on what's going on for them and how to upgrade, how to like tap into the upgrades that they really need. So that was the accident. And Can
I ask you a question about that, if you don't mind? So,
yes, please. Yeah.
You basically got the information like, hey, all these things are going to happen if you stay, but you don't have to stay.
Yeah. Honestly, yes. That was really? Okay. Yes, that's correct.
Okay, yeah, cool.
Because
so I guess you decided to stay.
I guess so, because I think the reason that, that was a great question. Nobody's ever asked me that question because I've told this story like millions of times, of course. And so that was really good. The doubt that was in my mind was me like having seen what I look like. And the car was like literally an accordion. They had to cut it in half, cut the roof off and all this other stuff just to get me out of there. And like I said, I was actually declared dead at the scene. So there was doubt as to whether or not I was going to be able to even recover. So I think that's why they gave me the option. But of course, here I am. So you were saying, I'm sorry.
Well, okay. So you're given the prophecy of what could become, I guess we could call it. And right. then you went on a journey. Like, give us the cliff notes of that.
Okay. So yeah, I got to the hospital, was in a coma. The doctors did their, analysis of everything. And there was so much damage that they told my family it would be better if I didn't wake up because it's 18 herniated discs. Of course, I was in a coma, shattered hip, shattered jaw, 24 broken bones. The spinal cord damage that I had, they said they've never seen. The only time they've seen it is in a cadaver. Like they've never seen anybody survive it, let alone be able to function. So it was kind of like, okay, they told my family, I'd either be dead or a vegetable. That was it. So that was like what I was dealing with. So woke up like 2 weeks later in the hospital and started using energetic practices that I had developed with my hypnotherapy practice and using different colors, geometries, and things like that. It was kind of like maybe Joe Dispenza style, where I wasn't aware of Joe Dispenza.
I was going to say this sounds like the Joe Dispenza story.
It kind of like really kind of is like similarly. And I literally walked out of the hospital in less than 3 months, which was like totally miraculous. So, yeah, I was all beat up and everything. Of course, it wasn't like a miracle healing. I, just back to normal, of course. But what happened from there, unfortunately, was even though Western medicine and the traditional medical model saved my life, got me back on my feet, so to speak. I bought into the medications, all the treatments, this, that, and the other thing. Wound up being on more than 12 different medications, 5 of them narcotic, tons of pain pills, all this other stuff, antidepressants, anti-anxiety, this, that, and the other thing, and everything they could throw at me for the next 20 years. Went through more than 80 different surgeries. I was in a wheelchair for 6.5 years. 5 failed hip replacements on the same hip. Best New York City doctors and hospitals wouldn't even operate on me anymore as far as the hip goes. They told me I'd never walk again. And they, finally, after begging these doctors to get me off these meds, telling me, I can't function anymore, and them telling me, oh, you're going to need this for the rest of your life, but don't worry about it. If we took you off these meds, we'd have to put you right back on because there's nothing non-narcotic to deal with this. So I wound up just over 20 years later with the turning point for me was when they diagnosed me with stage 4 liver damage and 4 to 6 months to live. So because why? I asked them, how could I have stage 4 liver damage? I'm begging you guys to get me off these meds. Of course, it's all those medications you're taking, the same ones you're writing me that you told me I'm going to need for the rest of my life. That's what's killing me. So I walked out of that doctor's office knowing that I could no longer depend on these people. I was on my own, basically, did some exercise, got back to, I used to be a competition power lifter, and had like 5 out of 6 of the records that were of the lifts. The only thing I didn't have was bench press, but that was another story.
I'm learning so much about you today with the hypnotist, the powerlifting. I mean, all the glories coming out, man.
That's it, brother. Thank you. So I had a lot of skills in that way to get my body back online. And visualization is a super powerful tool when it comes to that. But was able to shift my diet a little, do a little exercise, and I was not in great shape at that point. And within 6 months, got my liver back into normal ranges. And doctors could not believe it. They actually sent me back for labs again because they said it can't be. So I'm still on all these meds. Went to Canada to use Iboga, Ibogaine, literal miracle plant medicine. That if anybody who's looking for, to get off of narcotics, any type of medication, they should definitely look into that. And I have, top level information on that if anybody's interested, just to refer some people out to. It's a passion of mine. Literally saved my life. Within 10 days of treatment by the president of MAPS, I was able to connect with. I was off all the meds. So that started my journey into, okay, how am I going to really recover? I'm off all these meds, off all the pain meds, all the things that were supposed to be helping me. Now I'm off. And so I went to alternative medicine, holistic doctors, functional medicine, naturopaths, all it.
Can I ask you a question? So this is literally 20 years after the accident. And you were told that you were going to not only survive, but thrive, right? And all these things related to your health. Was there any moment that you were like, what the this is not aligned with the information that I was given?
Yeah. Yeah, just about every day. That's a good question. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Great question. Yeah, I look back on it and I'm like, I have no idea how I got through on a daily basis of what was going on, especially being in a I was in a wheelchair for 6.5 years and went to umpteen million doctors to try to get that straightened out. And I was just told, that's it, after 5 failed hip replacements on the same hip. So yes, in alignment with what you just said, yeah, there were some times it was what's happening here? So.
And let's talk about how you ended up at this new paradigm of health. When did you start to learn some of these methodologies that we'll get into shortly?
Okay. Yeah, that's exactly where I was going. So went to alternative medicine route, which is basically in many senses, using, I'm not a fan of what's going on with Western medicine and even alternative medicine today. Alternative medicine using basically the same broken toolbox of tests that Western medicine is using. And what they really did, and this is my experience, maybe not others, was give me supplements instead of writing me a prescription, which was better. And I was getting some results. I wasn't getting the results I really wanted. Wound up out of frustration, setting up, and this is spending thousands of dollars on testing, setting up 3 appointments in the same week with the same type of doctor, went in for the same type of thing. The results were that the blood work and other testing results in the same week looked like it was the testing results of 3 different people. And I got 3 different suggestions of different supplements and different treatments. So I was like, okay, confirmation that this is not the most accurate way of looking at it, analyzing the body and really bringing us back into fullness and wholeness. So I took it upon myself and just synchronistically was connected with different, what I would say, I would label them like masters of the reality and the human body that look at the human organism as a system of intelligent energy versus what's going on today, where, okay, we're looking at one isolated system. We're going to test what's going on, which is usually these tests are after the fact. They're not like in real time what's happening. So the things I learned along the way there enabled me to really tap into what's going on internally, utilizing the intelligence of the body in a way that I've never seen, anyone else really be able to utilize. And then that was all tied together by a mentor of mine in Canada who helped me utilize the gift I have of seeing this energy and utilizing a system that actually can calibrate and quantify the degrees of the capacities, let's say, of different systems in the body. Actually, the scan I do now is assesses more than 2,000 points in the body and 153 systems to be able to really ascertain in a quantitative way in real time what's going on a frequency level with the intelligence of the body to assess what the imbalances are and also what is required to bring them back into alignment. So I'm not sure. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So let's make this a little bit more tangible. So to do that, you use muscle testing. Can you describe muscle testing in a scale? Can you describe what that is? Because a lot of people probably aren't familiar with,
sure,
measuring the frequency is.
So for those who are not familiar with muscle testing, it's basically the body. You're asking the body a yes and no question at a very basic level. And you'll get a strong response or a weak response. Some people will see others holding his arm straight out, and strong is a yes, a weak is weak is a no. So and anybody could demonstrate this have this demonstrated on themselves. If they hold their arm out strong and they want to test it, this is a muscle testing example. Say, okay, my name is Ron, and somebody pushes down equal force here, and it'll be strong. If I say, okay, my name is Mary, it'll go weak. So that lack of resonance makes it weak. The resonance of my name is Ron keeps the arm strong, and it's that basic principle that's really tapping into the intelligence of the body and the body's ability to detect resonance or a lack of resonance. Is the basic principle for muscle testing and getting a positive or a negative. So getting a yes or no answer.
And I think one way we could look at that, right, is our nervous system is essentially a doorway of perception of energy and information. And so, that is really kind of more the mechanism of what I perceive, at least, is what is happening with muscle testing. I think one question that I imagine a lot of people have is well, don't we have blood work to test the capacity and performance of our body and the different systems and organs? I'd be curious, what is the advantage of muscle testing? And maybe we just start there.
Yeah, great question. Yes, we do. And in my experience, there are limitations in blood work and the other testing that's done, mainly because the model has not been really built around tapping into the different intelligences that the body has. It's as Joe Dispenza says, and many other scientists, Bruce Lipton, et cetera, heart math, our conscious mind is 5 to 10%, if that, 5 to 10% of our intelligence. The rest of the body's intelligence, the subconscious mind, is 90 to 95%. And these tests were created with a fraction of our intelligence. Yes, science is great. Science has great capacities, but they are looking at a very, very narrow window to determine things that have a tremendous amount of complexity. And even batteries of tests really, as we've seen from the level of health of the general population, don't really get down to the root cause of what's going on. They can give us some clues and markers, but from my experience, it really does not tap into what's really going on at a deep root core level. And in my opinion, in my experience, There isn't a great economic incentive for these tests to really get down to the root cause. And that's a whole nother rabbit hole to go into, is whether or not these tests are really designed to find the real cause, or they're designed to say, hey, you have this symptom, let me write this prescription. Oh, hey, you have this imbalance, let me sell you this thing. It's not about curing people. It's not about getting people into alignment, harmony, and say, hey, you're okay, send you on your way. No, it's like a perpetual, like, revolving door of things. So that being my experience with it, maybe other people have a different experience. I have found, and what got me to the place where I can thrive again and feeling good and be able to, be of service to the world again, are this modality that really taps into, again, I keep saying this, taps into the body's intelligence, where we're able to ask the body, because it knows better than conscious mind knows, about what's really going on, what the real deep core imbalances are, and not only finding out what the root cause is, but with that information, the body will be able to tell us in the simplest, most straightforward way what's required to get these blockages out of the way, to get these imbalances realigned, so that we can be our most fully optimized, harmonized self. And so, that's been my experience with it.
What's just like that's striking to me and so funny is that we just have been told that we can't trust our body. Like, isn't that kind of funny that, like, it's like the narrative is like, hey, you actually can't trust yourself. You need to go outside yourself. And like, I think if you talk to a lot of intelligent people, they would say, yeah, like we do have innate intelligence. Our bodies are intelligence. But when the rubber meets the road and they're like, okay, cool. So like, where should I go for answers about what to do with my health? They think they need to go outside themselves.
Right.
I mean, it's just kind of a fascinating thing. It's, in my experience, like, look, having been on the paradigm, having, lived in a world or an experience where I was conditioned to believe that I needed to go to doctors, et cetera, to get answers. And I needed proof and I needed all these things. And like you, having a very, very hollow result to show for it. I just think all of us have this amazing innate human healing potential. We are our own best healers, and we forgot about that, and we haven't been coached and trained on how to do that. And I think it's why there's an immense amount of skepticism for something like muscle testing.
Yeah, which makes complete sense. Yeah, we've been conditioned for generations now. To look outside ourselves for that, when the true power really lies within us. So it's a matter of unlearning and relearning, like the way things really work. And the information that's online right now is a maze of confusion and distraction, if in my opinion. So some like really clear guidance on how to empower ourselves to do our own, to take care of ourselves, I think is, that's where I'm coming from, at least. And that's what I help clients with. And it's my passion to really help people tap into what is really there for them inside. So I'm with you on that. Totally.
I think what I got into muscle testing through the work of David Hawkins 3 or 4 years ago. That was much more oriented around just, attempting to measure consciousness, attempting to calibrate the integrity of things. And what I think is really cool is you apply a similar concept to the human organism, the physical body.
Right.
And I think what a lot of people really want is they're like, okay, I buy into this. I buy into the fact that we're energetic beings. I do Qigong. I can feel my energy, right? Like all of these things, but they get stuck because we don't have a technology that can say, yeah, you're right. Like this does verify that. Have you seen anything outside of muscle testing that attempts to quantify the frequency or the vibrational level of anything related to the human body?
There are some things. I haven't seen any one system, honestly, that is reliable enough that I would like say, okay, this is something that can be utilized as a learning tool for that. There's a lot of different ways of looking at it, and there needs to be a significant interest in bringing people into wholeness in order for that technology to exist and survive and thrive and really get out to the masses. And as we've heard some stories about things like that, and different doctors coming up with cures that that things happen to the cures or things happen to them and things like that. There's some incongruent information about that. I wish there was, because that would be something that I could have married with the practice that I have and say, okay, here's some like scientific, so to speak, information about that. The evidence is in, like, some people can take their own, like, as far as muscle testing goes, some experiments of their own. Like I said, like with the arm test, and people can look this up online on YouTube, muscle testing. There's a sway test where you hold something on your heart and you ask your body to lean forward if it's good for you, lean backward if it's not. Invariably, that test your body will be able to sense the resonance of that. And using something extreme, like something like a cleaning product under the sink, holding that will definitely be a calibration that you'll be able to see that your body's recognizing that. So there's different ways of like easing into the acceptance that our body does have that kind of intelligence to really detect what's good and what's not. And then, greater confidence can be built into utilizing a system that, doesn't necessarily fit under the guise of like, the typical standard, Western medicine or even alternative medicine, so.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think with this stuff, like, if you're not open to new ways of improving your experience that maybe look a little bit different than you're used to, like, what are you doing? Like, you know what I mean? Right, and it's like, at the end of the day, like, experiment and verify and learn from yourself. Mm-hmm. And like, what do you have to lose? And that's how a lot of my own journey with this unfolded. And ultimately the proof is in the pudding. Like, do you get better? Do you have a better experience? Do you feel better? Right. And who gives a crap whether the existing paradigm can, it maps to that is kind of how I feel.
Yeah. I'm totally with you. Yeah. And that's where I was too. When I would say be really forced to seek out these other methodologies. And, and I was at the like kind of end of my road where I was like, okay, I've tried everything, literally like tried everything. I'm going to just go with this and trust this. And it created miracles for me. And, and that's why I got into it, because I spent decades going through all the motions of all the different things and finally came upon the system that at first I was like, okay, this is like, I don't even know if I can trust this. I don't know, but I'm going to try it anyway. And the quick story was that, the mentor I work with in Canada, like I said, who helped me like put this whole thing together. I went up there to see him, totally skeptical, brought a duffel bag full of the supplements I was taking on a daily basis, which was thousands of dollars a month in testing and all this stuff. I was getting some results. Yeah. But I wasn't like, I wasn't feeling great. It's like spending all this money. I should be with the best experts, supposedly. I should be doing a lot better. And, he tested the frequency. He taught me how to do all this too. He tested the frequency of all the supplements. And he's like, whoa, these are great. This is the highest quality. Oh yeah, this is expensive, but it's high quality. But like 95% of all this stuff that you have is not working for you, because the human body needs to be able to receive and assimilate things in a certain order that's based on the intelligence of the body and a certain priority order. In order for us to really benefit from all these great things. There's a ton of great ideas out there, but there's only a certain amount of things that will assimilate at a certain time and in a certain order in order to get like what I call like the highest return on investment or return on effort. And it's not just the investment of money, it's your time, energy, focus, attention, and everything else you're putting into your health. So he told me, all right, like 95% of this is working for you. Here's a few things that are. set it up in this way, set up this protocol in this way. And within 2 weeks, literally within 2 weeks, other people was telling me, oh, your skin looks clearer, your eyes look better. Oh, you look brighter. And I'm like, yeah, I am feeling better. But, I was still very skeptical. But it wound up being that this was like the paradigm shift for me in getting exponentially greater results. And so I went back to him 3 months later. And the way the program works is like the body works in cycles like the seasons, which is another thing that is not really talked about much. Is our body has cycles, of course, and if you're going to do a detox or any type of program, you want to do it for 90 days in order to have the body be able to complete a cycle. So I went back in 90 days. I was feeling completely different, and wound up seeing other people in the same clinic having miraculous results. And, I just decided, well, this is something I would love to bring to the world, because it saved me, like it could save people decades of time, energy, and effort, like it saved me. So that's how I really got into it. But it was very interesting.
I hope you're enjoying this conversation so far. If you like what you hear, let me know by clicking like, subscribing to the channel, and responding with a comment around something that you found interesting in the conversation so far. In addition to these videos, I do a lot of writing on the exploration of consciousness and my own personal revelations in my newsletter called Consciousness, the Doorway to Human Evolution. To receive these updates and more, all you need to do is simply head to the link in the description below, and you'll be added to the community of 20,000 plus consciousness explorers receiving weekly ideas and inspiration in their inbox. I look forward to hearing from you there. Now let's get back to the show. Yeah, I think this brings up a really interesting point where we're definitely at a point in the Western medical model that I think is acknowledging custom care, right? People are now into this idea of, oh, I'm going to get blood work done, and then I'm going to get a custom protocol for the different vitamins and supplements, etc. But that doesn't account for this notion of prioritization, right? It kind of treats a one size fits all model against blood work versus acknowledging the human system as a dynamic, responsive prioritization mechanism that is basically oriented around, hey, like this is the most important thing for you now. And I, as an intelligent entity, I'm going to focus on that. That's a little bit different than the kind of like, it's almost like one is a very linear, like static view of the body, and the other is a more dynamic, interconnected system view of the body.
Exactly.
So, and I guess with that perspective, you can answer this, because I know you've worked with hundreds and hundreds of people on this, is like, each person, it isn't like, it's like, oh, like, well, this looks like a prioritization of X. It's like each person's system is unique, and each person's system prioritizes uniquely. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there are general principles that I am shocked that are still overlooked. And I work with over 5,000 people. And I can say, and the mentors I had have worked with hundreds of thousands with this, the same basic framework of what I work with, of how I work with clients. And there is a priority, especially with detoxing, that goes from the gut, the liver, the lymph, and then the blood. And if detoxing is done in any different order than that, there's an inconsistency and just a resistance for that the body has to work a lot harder, and it's incomplete. But that's one of the things, and the sequence determines the results. So, gut health is always the primary importance, as we've heard a lot about, and that's kind of like the roots of the tree. But there are different nuances of what is going on with each person's gut and what their body, like you just said, needs to prioritize in order to get them the results that they're really looking for and get into that fullness of health and harmony again. So that is definitely something that is, very individual. And some of the things that I've also discovered, which are surprising to many, is that I found that there are no more Then 4, what I call core imbalances that can even be possible in a human organism that are the root causes, like the deepest root causes for all disease. And the example that I give is even as like a stage 4 cancer is not the problem. It's a problem, but it's not the problem. It's a result of a number of 4 different, depending on the person, core imbalances that created that situation or allowed or promoted or fostered the ability for that cancer to form. Yes, and there are emotional issues and things like that. I know there's, other theories on what can cause that, but if there's if there's no oxygen, there can't be a fire, so to speak. So what we do is make sure that what's going on internally with those core imbalances is realigned so that these type of disease states can't even exist. And that's how things can be rolled back, even a serious situation like that. So identifying those core imbalances makes the, like I'll say, the treatment and giving person the power to determine their own path with their health so much easier because it takes all the guesswork out. It's no longer trying this, trying that, and what about this, and what about that, and this test said that, and that test says this. When we tap into the body's intelligence, it knows what it needs in the order it needs it. Like I said, the sequence determines the results for that.
What are the 4 core imbalances, high level?
They're a little different for each person, but the number one, especially today, with the super stressed environment that we have, with multiple vectors of toxins coming in, whether it's the air, the water, food, and different things, EMF and things like that. Gut health is the number one, of course. Again, there are basics for gut health that are out of balance for literally everyone, especially with today's environment. But once we get those in balance, then there are different nuances depending on the person. But gut health, definitely right now, kidney and spleen are, and this is something the science is still not showing, which is, one of the benefits of looking at an alternative model, even alternative. And I talk to a lot of different doctors about this because I've been finding these imbalances. We're in a, post-COVID situation where there's a lot of different information about the shedding and different things in the environment and things like that, and how it's impacting our bodies. And there's some solid evidence that there are factors involved. But for the last 2 years, I've been finding like low potassium, low sodium, kidney capacity being very low, and also spleen, and that's impacting people's immune system. So that's one of the foundational things now that nearly 100% of people are working with, need to work with. And then there are other things, whether it's liver, blood situations, thyroid is a big one. It depends on the person. So, and it also depends on, like what their body is prioritizing. And it becomes really simple. For a 90-day program, it's like really simple. Okay, work with this first, work with this for a month, get this in balance, and then a sequence. And it just like creates a new foundation for their health that solidifies all the systems in a really, really amazing way, and just plugs them right back in a way that is just remarkable. Because the intelligence of the body, like I say, it's the most brilliant quantum supercomputer on the planet, and we just need to know how to program it. That's it.
We've forgotten how to program it. What we're learning. This is the most amazing thing about awareness. As awareness expands, the potential for our capacity expands. It's literally the theme of the show, that the evolution of consciousness is the evolution of humans. And when we shift what we believe and the information and the energy, what's possible for a human life shifts as well.
Exactly.
And so one thing I think is really interesting to touch on for a lot of folks, I was a recovering biohacker, right? I was doing the supplements, I was doing all the things, and there were certain brands of supplements that I was like, this is a good brand. An example would be Thorne, right? Now Foods, there are certain things that I was buying supplement wise that I was like, well, this is really good. This is good for me. This is a good brand. And the same can be said about things in the grocery store, right? where I was purchasing
Yes.
foods. It's like, oh, I'm buying all organic. This is good for me. And when I began to work with you and I began to also teach myself how to tap into my body's innate wisdom, I learned very quickly that you can't judge a book by its cover in terms of what you're putting in your body. A lot of the supplements I thought were good brands were not testing well. A lot of organic food was not testing well. And I was just blown away. I was like, what the hell have I been spending my money on? You know, like this is like fucking insane. And I just would love to hear you talk about like what is going on there and why we just can't trust like a label or like a, you know, just a thing that we see next to a pile of food, and like why that can be just so variable.
There's a lot of not so great news about that right now these days. Things have changed a lot in the environment and the way food's processed, and also the raw materials that many of the supplement companies are using. And how do I know that? I am just going by what the resonance of thousands of people's bodies are saying about these different like formulations and different brands, like you say. And it doesn't necessarily mean like, there are some brands that most of the stuff is really not worth purchasing, but I'm going on the muscle testing that I do, and I don't just use a scale. Like there's muscle testing can vary from practitioner to practitioner, and it's the quality of the question you're asking that's going to give you the quality of the answer and the efficacy of the answer that's going to be really useful for you, you know, achieving your goals. So without a good question, you're not going to get a good answer. So what I've done is take the yes and no principle of muscle testing, whether strong and weak, and enabled me to calibrate what I call the resonant frequency on a scale from 1 to 100 for supplements, for food, water, and beverages and stuff like that. So I'm able to quantify how good a supplement is for a particular individual, and it varies. It can vary greatly, but that's the system I'm using. And what I'm finding with with many supplements and brands today is that the quality of the ingredients is suffering, and the combinations of different things may not be resonant. So if we think about frequencies as like being resonant and complementing, just like sound, like, you know, have a symphony orchestra and different things need to really resonate with one another. You could throw one more instrument in there and the whole symphony is soured. In the same way, there are formulations out there on the market that just don't have that complementary synergy, and it's creating dissonance in the body. So that's one aspect of it. The quality of the ingredients has gone down significantly, especially over the last 3 or 4 years, to where all the supplements that I test, I can say in general terms, 70% of the supplements on the market, even high-end things that we hear great things about, literally are not worth purchasing. They're not resonant with the human organism, like literally belong in the garbage can, and shouldn't be on the market. But people don't know. And even the labs, and I have people in the supplement industry that will, you know, fight me to the death on this. I have labs on this. No, look at my labs. And some very popular brands that I'm not going to mention right now literally belong in the trash. And if you want to, you know, test it for yourself again, that sway test that can be looked up on YouTube, hold it on your heart, ask if it's this good for me. I'll lean forward. If it's not, I'll lean backward. That's a basic test. So how do they get good labs when the ingredients are really not of high quality? There is a lot of stuff coming from overseas as far as raw materials. There's things being mixed in. It's an unregulated industry. Not that I'm saying it should be regulated, but there should be some standards, and we can empower ourselves again, like we're talking about right now, to really know what's right for us. And, learning more about that is and teaching people about that is what my passion is about this. So I really, yeah. So, and then the food supply, you had a question?
I was going to say, let's talk about the food, because the same freaking thing is happening there. And, I feel like I had the wool pulled off from my eyes as I started to get into this stuff, sadly.
Yeah. It's not good. It's not good. I have a standard, like when I'm starting to work with someone, this is really good information, that there are a number of foods across the board. We're talking for US right now, US and Canada. In Europe, it's a little bit different, but that are super toxic, like right now, that you can't even tell.
I think one of the points I wanted to establish here, and I want to talk about food, is like, I mean, a lot of these things, like we think that they're healthy for us, right? Like it's like organic food, it's good brands, etc. But like the same thing is happening with food that's happening in the supplement industry.
Yeah, really true. Yep. and so whenever I'm working with someone, there's a list of things that I suggest to focus on. Again, getting the highest like return on your effort to take toxins out of your diet. And many people are doing tons of stuff with detoxing, which is great. And it's really required, especially these days. But to know what's toxic in the food supply that you may not be aware of, and there's some real surprises, is equally, if not more important than the detox itself, because you want to make sure you're not toxifying yourself with the very food that you're eating on a regular basis anyway. So the top things that I suggest to people is wheat, of course, genetically modified, the typical Western wheat, not European wheat, but Western wheat. And it's not the gluten that's the problem. Gluten is the diversion. It's like, look over here while the problem is right over here. And it's not gluten that's the issue for people, even with IBS and all this celiac and stuff. It's the glyphosate and the other other chemicals that are built into this Western wheat that has been genetically modified since the late 60s. So that I don't even call it a food. I call it a substance. It's the most toxic substance in the food supply. So that's Western wheat. Dairy cheese is another one with mold toxins, all sorts of antibiotics and things like that. Those are two top things to avoid. Bananas is a surprise. Bananas, every single banana, organic included, in this country and in Canada, is treated with a ripening agent that gets down into the fruit and is toxic for 100% of the people. Even though banana's got magnesium and it's got potassium, it's useless. There's more toxins in a banana than there is nutrients, and it's something that is not resonant with the human organism. Not when it's treated with those chemicals. I mean, if you're in, another country down in South America and you're picking it right off the tree or in the market, that's another story. So those are three things. Pork, another one. People love their ribs and stuff like that. It's got parasites. It's one of the most toxic meats. And in the US, unfortunately, it's got a lot of other things in it as well. So I ask people, I suggest people avoid that. So, and here's some other surprises. In the US and Canada, all the peanut butter is soaked with glyphosate and soaked with mold toxins. It's totally toxic. Oats and oatmeal. Same thing. There's only one organic oatmeal that I have found that tests really, really well. And it's Bob's Red Mill organic rolled oats. I could shoot out a link when we put a link underneath. That's the only one that works. And then, believe it or not,
kudos to Bob.
Yeah, kudos, right? But there's only one. He's got other organic stuff in the oatmeal department that I'm not sure what's going on with it, but it's not resonant. Like it's like really low on that scale of 1 to 100. The other thing, surprisingly, is bell peppers. Bell peppers, about 4.5 months ago, organic included, every single one in this country is being treated with or grown with a new herbicide or toxin that tests at the same resonance, again, from 1 to 100, at a resonance of 4, which is lower than
Jeez.
roach spray. Like if you go into your cabinet and take out a roach spray or bug spray, that tests at 6. This stuff tests at 4. And they look great, they're crisp, and you can't taste this chemical that's in there. So there's things like that going on in the food supply that I'm always on the lookout for. I'm always scanning that stuff in the market. But those are things to avoid, the high priority things to avoid. And then the other thing, like you were just alluding to, the organic, non-organic situation, it unfortunately cannot be depended on anymore. There's a little bit greater propensity for, or likelihood that something that's labeled organic might test a little bit better. It's not always the case. And what's going on lately is the food supply, the fruits and vegetables are being irradiated to keep them fresher. I mean, many of us, you don't have to be so old to remember back when you were a kid and things that you put in the refrigerator or you brought back from the supermarket, whether it was lettuce or an apple or something like that, didn't last very long. Now they last for months, and that is not natural. It's meaning that there's some other treatment or chemical or something else going on that's preserving it and making it look great too. You really, it's difficult to tell. And then we have the appeal situation, which some people know about, some people don't, where there's some sort of toxic coating being put on many of the fruits and vegetables, including avocados. Some of it has that label. It's an appeal label. It looks like a little avocado, and that's something to really avoid. So those are the different things that are happening in the food supply, like the high priority items.
So the takeaway here is become a breatharian.
There we go.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Although that is something that I'm pretty interested in. But
yeah, we can work on that.
Look, I think at the end of the day, I don't want this to be a doomsday message to people. But what I think what we're getting at here is that at the end of the day, the way for us to position ourselves for the greatest well-being is to take back our power, right? Absolutely. And to learn how to work with our body to figure out what's good with it.
Absolutely.
Good for it. Mm-hmm. And it's and things like our food supply, supplements, etc. The truth is they're constantly changing. Mm-hmm. And unless you are growing it in your backyard, you don't know how it's changing. You don't know what new chemicals are going. Oh, they're getting it from this farm instead of that farm, etc. Like you just don't know unless you own the supply. And so I think like the idea that we can view as this food is good, this food is bad, and treat that so statically, I think is a little bit naive. Yeah. And I think, just a more effective approach is to arm yourself with a toolkit that is more dynamic and responsive to navigate a complex reality in a complex system. Yeah. And I want to stress that, like, I do think, working with someone like you, I know there's lots of people out there that do muscle testing type stuff and look at this in a different way is a great thing, but you can also develop these capacities yourself, right? Like we've done testing together and verified, my capacity to test, which is something I just learned on YouTube and just continued to practice, right? As I worked on the consciousness stuff. And so I think that's like an important message here is like, you can learn this stuff and you can equip yourself, and it is within reach for anybody that just wants to put the time and effort into it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if they need assistance with it, go to someone who can help with it, of course. It can be, we can do it. We have the tools to do it. So I'm totally with you on that.
One of the things that we've talked about in the past is this concept of a divine blueprint. And that's a phrase that maybe people have heard, maybe people haven't. that I think is very interesting and related to this work. And I'd love to hear your perspective on what is our divine blueprint? What does that mean?
There's a lot that can be said about that. I feel like us getting back, I mean, it's to me, it's really deep. And it has to do with preserving our original DNA, first of all. I keep talking about this, activating our body's intelligence, which is really dependent on us detoxifying and cleansing and keeping our bodies clean on a daily basis. But that divine blueprint has been suppressed, shut down, and conditioned out of us. And the belief, like we were talking about earlier, the belief that we need to go outside of ourselves for the answers is part of the control system, diverting our attention from accessing that divine blueprint. And many of the different environmental factors, toxins and stuff like that, suppress that full expression of our divine blueprint. And I just think that's like our Christ-like, if we want to, without getting into religious, like our Christ avatar, our fully activated avatar is our divine blueprint. And we all have the capacity for that. And I feel like the things that are missing from us being able to fully tap into and access that start with really amplifying the frequency of the slowest moving material. Let's say the slowest moving frequency in our multidimensional being is what? Is the physical body. Because if we're which we are multidimensional beings, so we have many different bodies, so to speak, and the aura is like a representation of those etheric bodies. But to like raise our frequency to really get back into what these, like, let's say divine superpowers are that we all have as the human angelic avatar, is to raise the frequency of the physical body, to get that vibing and that frequency aligned. So that's the first thing that I like to focus on to get back to that. But really the divine blueprint is our fully activated Christic avatar or Christ avatar that we all have the capacity for. And whether that's breatharianism, which is another story altogether, or being in a state where our highest intuition, our highest alignment for our mission, are just the full knowing, our full awareness, and being in our fullest capacity and power, and having this avatar fully plugged into the reality that we're here to experience is to me like one of the just ways of looking at how we can fully access that. So hopefully that answers.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the takeaway is like, we have this vessel called a body, right? And the body is 3D matter. It is, flesh and bone. And in order to purify ourselves to return to that original essence, we need to keep our bodies pure, right? And one of the things that I've observed is as that kind of consciousness expansion process happens, which expresses at a frequency level, right? Like your heart opens, all of these things, you become in touch with energy, intuition, all this stuff. It's just that your composite of energy is shifting to a new frequency. What you can put in your body changes, right? Like I cannot touch certain low density substances, like alcohol, it would be an example, anymore without my body going haywire. Even things like sugar, like the sensitivity is remarkable. It's like I've talked about this before, but it's like you're going from driving like a Honda Civic to like a F1 car with a level of maintenance and complexity, but also performance, right? And so there's kind of a dual edge there. But I just think it's an important message because a lot of people that maybe are on the consciousness path maybe don't give the body as much reverence as it deserves as part of the big picture, right?
Right. I totally agree. Yeah. And it needs to be looked at as, in the whole picture, the holistic model. There are a lot of people doing a lot of mental work, a lot of emotional work, a lot of trauma work, and things like that without paying attention to the physical body. It works, but it's not working as well. And I look at like plugging them in all together, and especially with the physical body, this being the multiplier of all that other work that we're doing and all that other consciousness work, because we're dragging a big weight along without having this fully attuned. And I like the highest ROI is attuning the physical body first. And I have seen, like you just said about the foods that people I'm working with, when they start to align themselves and raise their frequency, their body starts to rise in frequency. Even their desires for these different things fall off. Like, oh, that cake that I used to love, that sugar, it doesn't even taste that good. Oh, I ate the whole thing. Oh my God, I can't believe I used to eat that. It makes, it's just a matter. It's so simple too. It's just a matter of resonance. And when we align ourselves in, with these higher resonances, that pulls in greater things that are more in alignment with our true mission and our fullest expression as well. So it's just a multiplying effect as we put small increments of effort into that. I see it being, like I said, a multiplier, and we get exponential results in all the other things that we're doing as well, and all the other efforts we're putting into raising our consciousness and doing other things like that.
I like that.
So
I would say, just a couple of reflections to that. Like, it is the big secret of this stuff, right? Is that as your consciousness changes, your preferences shift automatically. That's like, there's nothing stronger.
Yep.
Like willpower is like, it's like laughable relative to this type of work, in terms of what it can change. Like, you just automatically become a good person. You just automatically become healthy. You just automatically, like, all of these things are automatic because you're working at a fundamental level, not a kind of contrived, coerced level. And the other thing I've noticed, man, is like, I would also flip this and say, I know a lot of people, and maybe they're not looking at the body from a more quantum perspective, but they're, incredibly immersed in all the biohacking and stuff. They don't do the consciousness work, and they have the perfect diet and the perfect exercise routine and all the perfect things, but their field is a shit show because they haven't done any of the consciousness work, and their body suffers, which is an expression of consciousness, right? And so exactly, you kind of just need to do both, is what it comes down to, I feel like.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm finding, since the work I do is like really super, super specific about frequency, about, again, activating the intelligence of the body in a super specific, dialed in way, I'm finding that a lot of people that are doing that physical work, that have got the diet, got the supplements and stuff like that, and they're doing even the biohacking, it's only getting them so far. And there's a belief system that, doing all these great things in the flashy, shiny new object on Instagram and everything is going to do it for them. And it's still missing the mark of what is going on and not tapping into the intelligence of the body. So, I found that like super specific ways, and there's more general ways too, of aligning the frequency of the physical body and doing these gentle cleanses with the gut, the liver, lymph, blood, in that order, can get people exponentially greater results with less effort too, and less expensive in the long run. And that will get them to a different place. And what I found, even with clients, and I'm going to say more than 60, 70% of the people I work with find that their emotions, as they work with their physical body, it's releasing toxins in a very specific way that with the intelligence of the body and the certain order that the body is asking this to be released. Those emotions are attached to a lot of different toxins in the body. So just doing a gentle cleanse, detox in a certain way is going to allow people to release a lot of patterns and emotions almost automatically. I'm not going to say effortlessly, but it gets a lot easier. And then, that creates, again, that multiplying effect of raising their frequency so that they can get their field aligned in a much different way, in a much more, in a much more impactful way. So that's an experience I've seen people have on a regular basis when it's done in a specific way. And it's super simple. It's easy. It's not complex. It's not trying all these different things. All the guesswork's taken out of it. So you really get it dialed in.
I can attest to that, relative to like the cleanses and shit I've tried, like, the straightforward, like detox protocols are, quite easy to follow. But Ron, I mean, we could talk about this stuff forever, man, but I also hear my daughter calling my name. So we're going to put this one to a close for now. I do want to give you an opportunity, just share more about where people can find you, how you potentially could work with people, et cetera, because look, your services have changed my life and given me my vitality back.
Thank you,
I know there's a lot of people out there that probably they want that, right? They want that and they want to know where they can find resources and help.
Yeah. Thank you, brother. Yeah. Easiest way is quantum_formulas on Instagram. The link in bio will take you to a bunch of different links there, which will take you to my website as well, which is called Ascension Keys. But super simple, quantum_formulas. I have a couple of intro things. I have the 5 basic foundational supplements, free PDF that people can access there. A list of more than 100 foods that I've gone through the supermarket and tested on a scale from 1 to 100 to give you ideas about what good meats are, what good, different meats and different products and pasta and sauces and almost more than 30 snacks that test in a decent range. So, you're not really utilizing like some toxic stuff because everybody likes a snack. And that's a really easy $47 list that you can look into. And then if people are interested in working on a one-on-one basis, I do body scans. So like I'll call it a frequency labs. Like if you go to the doctor and you're getting labs for blood and stuff like that, that's one way to do it. But what I do is a body scan that gives the frequency analysis of what's going on to identify, like we talked about, those 4 core imbalances and what your body is saying about what those imbalances are, the nuances of them, and the simplest way to bring them back into alignment in the shortest amount of time. And, book a call on that. And we can discuss more about what that looks like. And really happy and blessed and for the opportunity to work with you, Scott, and just be of service to this audience. It's an honor.
Well, thank you, man.
And it's my mission.
You're doing a good job with the mission, man. Just keep going. And for everybody listening, all of those resources will be linked in the show notes, so you don't have to memorize them. And Ron, just, man, I feel a deep kinship with you, brother. I got a lot of love for you, and I'm excited that we can share your mission with the world.
Thank you, brother. Same here, man. It's a pleasure and honor. Thank you so much for the opportunity.